Hello, my name is Nahomi López, and I'm going to talk about a very interesting video of TED Talks named Climate Change is Happening, Here's How We Adapt by Alice Bowes Larkin. I chose this video because climate change is one of the biggest problems that humanity is going through, and it's something that involves everyone in the planet because the consequences are for human, animals, environment, and everything in the world. First, it's necessary to explain what climate change is. Well, we have been listening about this topic since a lot of years ago, but we just listened and didn't make anything to avoid it. Climate change is a change in the usual weather found in a place. This could be a change in how much rain a place usually gets in a year, or it could be a change in a place's usual temperature for a month or a season. Climate change is also a change in Earth's climate. This could be in Earth's usual temperature, or it could be a change in where rain and snow usually fall on Earth. Everyone with small actions contributes to climate change, but that's not a bad fact, because it is true we have a big impact in climate change, and we have been destroying Earth for many years. But we can use that impact to make positive change for the future of climate change. There have been a lot of efforts of the government of all the countries to talk about this topic and make something positive or something good to avoid it. Because the biggest fear that all the countries have includes an increase of 2 degrees, which is going to be extremely destructive for everyone, but especially for all the countries which don't have high economic income. Because this type of person in this country don't have a good infrastructure in their houses, don't have possibilities to pay if anyone is suffering a disease because of climate change. So it's clear that this 2 degrees increase is going to be destructive and charge hundreds of lives. Unfortunately, the CO2 emissions in the last years have been increasing and speed up some efforts of the biggest countries. That means that we're not doing what we can. We can do more to avoid this phenomenon. Something important that maybe someone asks is what is causing climate change. Geological records stretching back millions of years indicate a number of large variations in Earth's past climate. These have been caused by many natural factors, including change in the sun, volcanoes, Earth orbit, and CO2 levels. However, comprehensive assessment by scientists shows that it's extremely likely that human activity has been dominant because of warming. Since the mid-20th century, greenhouse gas emission evidence that CO2 emissions are the cause of global warming is very robust. Scientists have known since the early 18th that greenhouse gases in the atmosphere trap heat. Global CO2 emissions from human activity have increased by over 400% since 1950. As a result, the concentration of CO2 in the air has reached more than 400 parts per million by volume, compared to about 218 ppm in 1970, around the start of the Industrial Revolution. Solar influence the sun is the primary source of Earth heat, so relatively small change in solar output can affect our climate. Satellite observation since the late 1970s have shown a slight decrease in the sun's total energy output. However, instead of cooling, the Earth has warmed over this period. Also, warming from the sun will heat all the atmosphere, including the lowest few kilometers. The layer above observation shows that the stratosphere is in fact cooling while the troposphere warms. This is consistent with greenhouse gas heating and not solar heating. Climate change affects all regions around the world. Polar ice sheets are melting and the sea is rising. In some regions, extreme weather events and rainfall are becoming more common, while others are experiencing more extreme heat waves and drought. These impacts are expected to intensify in the coming decades. Also exist consequences for developing countries, because any poor developing countries are among the most affected. People living there often cause any poor developing countries are among the most affected. People living there often depend heavily on their natural environment, and they have the least resources to cope with the changing climate. Climate change is already having an impact on health. There has been an increase in the number of heat-related deaths in some regions, and decrease in cold-related deaths in others. We are already seeing change in the distribution of some waterborne illness and disease vectors. In my opinion, other important consequence is damage to property and infrastructure and to human health impose heavy costs on society and the economy. Between 1980 and 2011, floods affect more than 5.5 million people and cause direct economic losses of more than 9 billion. Sectors that rely strongly on certain temperatures and precipitation levels such as agriculture, forestry, energy, and tourism are particularly affected. Climate change is happening so fast that many plants and animal species are struggling to cope. Many terrestrial, freshwater, and marine species have already moved to new locations. Some plant and animal species will be increased risk of extinction if global average temperatures continue to rise unchecked. To avoid the 2 degrees framing of dangerous climate change, it's necessary to exchange at least temporarily economic growth. And that's the reason why this could be so difficult, because no one wants to stop economic growth. And yes, we all can say that this is impossible, but it's necessary. To reduce climate change, we need to change all the system, stop doing something, and start doing others. The change we need to reduce the impact of climate change is not doing something we can't. We can start with small actions and including our family, friends, etc. to make a big change in all the world. Because just imagine this. Imagine the hottest day you have ever experienced. Now, imagine it's 6, 10, or 12 degrees hotter. According to climate researcher Alice Bose Larkin, that's the type of future in store for us if we don't significantly cut our greenhouse gas emission now. She suggests that it's time we do things differently, a whole system change. In fact, and seriously consider trading economic growth for climate stability.